Please pardon the mess. These are just some of the books that I'm giving to Profiles in History that will go into my auction. I couldn't give them everything, obviously, because they're just simply too much, but I provided them with a nice selection of pieces, books that I think will sell. In any case, I'm doing this a little differently because what I'm going to do in this video is basically go to my walls and give you a nice choice selection of pieces, talk about them very quickly, and just give you a basic overview of some of the other stuff that's going to be in the auction. Obviously, I have a lot of very significant, very important pieces, and I don't have the time to make individual videos on all of them. I tried to cover some of the highlights. I'm going to miss a lot of them, but what can you do? By the way, don't get excited about the piece on the wall, Tarzan and Balgani. That's not for sale. That's just a print. I put it there because I live in the desert, and this is the one part of the house that gets direct sunlight in the summer. So I didn't want to put any art there and expose it to any kind of deteriorating effects of sunlight. And unfortunately, that's one of those pieces I used to own many years ago, and I traded it away. I wrote an essay about that because it's the one deal I've ever made that I really regret. And I really regret it deeply. I traded it to Russ Cochran. I got a Flash Gordon page for it. I wanted desperately a Flash Gordon page from 1935, 1936. I got a great one, but to this day, I still regret making that trade. So in any case, let's see how this turns out. By the way, in these books, I have several very, very rare volumes, including probably the two most celebrated illustrated volumes in history. Both are illustrated by the great illustrator Daniel Vierge. One is called Pablo de Segovia, which is considered his masterwork, and the other is his version of Don Quixote, which is a 4-volume set, plus it has an additional 5th volume with detachable portfolio plates. So it represents some of the best work that he's done. Both of those sets are very, very rare, very seldom offered for sale, and I've got some nice examples of each. So anybody into classical illustration, you should really take a look at those volumes. In any case, let's see how it goes. Let's take a walk around the house a little bit. I'll show you a couple of pieces, comment on them, and let's see how this turns out. I've only got a short amount of time. Profiles is ready to come to my front door, empty my walls, pick up all my books, take my portfolios. There are only 2 things I'm holding back outside of my portrait. I'm holding back the private tapes that I have that I made with Frank. Those are simply too personal. They don't belong to be sold to strangers or even anybody else. The other thing is I have a portfolio of nice early photos, and I think I want to hold those back because I'd like to produce a book in the future of all those photos. They're very, very nice, and Frazetta did a lot of those photos himself with a self-timer. And it's like Rembrandt doing that whole series of self-portraits. Well, Frazetta did the same thing except with a camera. So hopefully I'll be able to publish that at some point in the future. So I'm not getting out of the business. There are things I still want to do. As a matter of fact, the one thing I want to find is a very great and very early Buck Rogers daily. I've come across some in the last 30 or 40 years, but they weren't quite great enough or special enough. I want a daily, a very early one. So keep that in mind. All right, let's take a look at some pieces. Let's start out with this study for the Master of Adventure paperback cover. In my opinion, this is probably the finest study Frazetta ever did. And you can see why I say that. The atmosphere simply is intense in this particular image. It's one of the nicest images of Tarzan that Frazetta ever painted. As a matter of fact, for a study, this is more like a miniature painting. And Frank changed it later on when he finished the final painting. He added a bunch of animals in the perimeter and published it that way. And later on, he was disenchanted with it, knew he made a mistake, painted out Tarzan, painted out the animals, and put in a nice nude, and basically made it a painting of very soft elegance as opposed to this painting of tremendous intensity. Once again, if you look at this thing closely enough and you really, really take a look at it, you can just feel the jungle. You can just sense the jungle in a piece like this. I love the atmosphere. This is Frazetta at his very best. And this is just a small piece of a larger sketch sheet. On that sketch sheet, Frazetta says, "This is my favorite rough." So this is Tarzan, Master of Adventure.